Well, hi everybody, it's Sandy. Welcome to my video. Today we're going to be doing pattern paper flowers, and if you thought I was going to make stuff out of pattern paper, you're mistaken. We're going to be drawing them. And I'm going to use this Bokeh Dots set from Ellen Hudson as a start for my flowers. And there's all kinds of different circle stamps out there, but this one in particular I like because of the size of the scribble circles, because it's got multiple ones. You can mix and match, do all different kinds of bouquets out of it. There's all different kinds of designs you can do with these as well. Not just these flowers, but I thought they would be really, really fun to do. I did something very much like this with my Copic art journal. I've been working on just kind of coming up with fun, crazy ideas in that. And this one was one that I thought warranted a card eventually. I didn't have something that was leaf shaped, so I just took the inside of a roll of empty tape and decided to use that to make my leaves. Just drawing half and then moving it and then drawing the other half. The stamp set has some regular circles and dots as well as the scribble circles. So I used all of those, well, most of those I think, in the stamp set as well, to just try to add some differentiation as we go along. And this is all stamped with Memento ink because I'm going to use Copic Markers. And I'm zooming through. Just very first step is going to be to color the base color on all of these shapes. And I'm not worried about getting them smooth. I just want to get the color on there so I can figure out what the colors are going to be on this entire piece. I decided I was going to go with kind of bold, bright colors, very primary types of colors on this whole thing, and just to create some fun, crazy pattern papers. Now you can do this in all different kinds of colors. On my art journal, I did all pinks and reds, and I think I had some yellow pattern paper in the background, that kind of thing. And there's also, throughout this whole thing, different steps that you could stop. You don't have to carry things as far as I'm going to carry them, but I think you're going to really be excited about the result at the end if you follow through all the steps and go all the way to the finished part. But since this is a scribble set, it's going to be really easy to color. I'm trying to color similar colors for the outlines as I am for the inside, so I don't even have to color really carefully because there's not really a clear edge between some of those shapes sometimes, so can get kind of loose with it and not have to really stress out about the coloring all that much. But just base colors on everything. You can see I've got lots of really bright, intense colors. As I get through this, I'm going to keep trying to knock back some colors and add a lot of depth with shading. And I'll explain the shading as I go. So if you decide you want to do this, or if you just want to learn how to color round shapes so that they look like they're round, I'll be talking about some of that as we get into the shading as well. I'm coloring the background, and you can skip that part and just have a white background behind it, but I'm going to do some pattern paper in the background as well, and it's going to look like torn paper. There's going to be a torn edge in between the yellow and the pink paper. So now is where I'm going to start adding the shapes and the shadows. And generally, that yellow, I just added a C shape and blended it out a little bit. On this red, I'm going to put a shadow underneath of the round yellow circle, as well as making the inside red circle look like it's receding. And you can see the places where I'm putting the shadows underneath the top lip, as well as a little bit around the bottom lip. And again, I'm not having to worry too much about making my shading perfect, because one of the things I'm going to do is make this patterned paper. If you go through the step of making it patterned, then it doesn't matter if you get all of your blending quite perfect or not, because I'm going to add textures and patterns right over top of my Copic coloring. Now you can't go over, well, I mean you can, but I wouldn't recommend going over your Uni-ball Signo pen with very much Copic. Sometimes it will leave a little of the pen on your marker, and you don't want to do that. The multi-liner is Copic friendly, so if you decide you want to go back over it, you can easily do that, no problem at all, because those are made to be worked on with Copic markers. So I'm just adding patterns in black and patterns in white, and you can look at pattern papers to get ideas for what kind of things to doodle. You can go to Zentangle books and try to find little patterns to draw in. But as long as you keep your patterns contained to these shapes, they don't even get boring to draw a whole lot of. If I did a whole page, I think I'd probably go crazy. So here I'm doing the purples, and I decided I was going to do, you know, in addition to that shading, I wanted to add some white dots to it. So I'm going around each one of those dots with it, and then I thought, oh, let me add some more. So I'm just kind of getting crazy and random with a lot of this stuff. Each one of the outlines, I'm using a secondary color to add a little bit of shading to it, and then going over it again with the base color just to make it look like those are twisty, I don't know, raffia. I guess I'm kind of seeing them in my mind as raffia circles. So this one, I took the Copic multiliner and I just started drawing circles on that, in addition to the dots that were already there, and overlapping some of them and making them get kind of smaller as they get out to the outside. And then I went in with my 0 marker, which pushes color away from itself. It acts a little like a bleach pen, but it doesn't bleach a whole lot. It's just going to lighten some spots. And then I decided that wasn't really getting me very far because I didn't have much contrast with the blue color that I already had. So I'm adding, with the existing blue color, dark blue color, adding dots. But again, adding them in that sort of C shape around the bottom of that circle so that it kind of looks like there's increased shadow because of those dots. And adding a little orange to create a little differentiation around that circle. And on to the next one. And this one I'm just going to do some kind of swirly squiggle things for the pattern inside that little red one. And this is one of those fun things that you can do when your Copic coloring doesn't come out really smooth. Just put some kind of pattern on it, even if you're coloring an image with a little girl's dress and it doesn't come out quite right. Just add pattern and no one will notice it. You can see it just kind of masks all that right up. So I'm using a red to shade my orange, and then I'm just going to add dots around the outside section where the black dots are not at. So just add a little bit more interest to that. And then I'm going to move on to the leaves. These leaves are a pretty big element, and so I want to make sure I add a little bit of dimension to each one of them. I forgot a few of the lines when I was doing the pencil sketching of the leaves, so I'm just adding that in there, and I'll increase that outline in a little while, so that will appear more. But I'm using a couple different greens to add a couple different shades to the leaves, and again I'm going to go over them with lines with the pen, so I'm just trying to get some rough shading in there. Doesn't have to be really perfectly done or take a whole lot of time. And then I'm just adding some lines going the same direction as the leaf. So sort of veins, but you could do each one in a different pattern as well. And I wanted to limit the pattern a little bit so that it didn't get too visually crazy, because this is already a pretty visually intense kind of a piece anyway. So just adding them on all the different pieces. And again, on my Copic art journal, I did each one of the leaves in a totally different pattern. At least I think I did. As I'm sitting here doing this voiceover, I'm trying to think back to what that had looked like as well. If you would like to see that one on the blog post, I am going to post a photograph of that page so you can see kind of where that inspiration came from. There's a whole lot more pattern paper ideas on that layout. So here I'm just adding some flowers and just going to throw them on there loosely. People are going to be looking at the flowers in the front, so this is just adding very subtle flowers to the background, a subtle pattern to that. And this one I wanted to do some kind of bolder stripes, and I probably should have used a ruler to get them a little straighter, but what I ended up doing is, you know, putting the first lines in there with the red, and then I could still see some of the pink messiness in between. So I started going in between and going over those, and I was going to make it look like there was a darker pink stripe in between the red stripes, and then I just kind of started scribbling over it, and it was all good enough by the time I finished that section. Because again, people are going to be looking at these flowers. Because look at how adding a little shadow makes them pop. The shadows are all in that C shape, that same, if the light's coming from that upper right, it's going to be on the left side around the bottom. And so I'm adding that around each one of the objects, each one of the circles, down in between all the leaves and the stems of the flowers, all that kind of stuff. And just adding a really heavy black. This is a C8. If it scares you, you can go with a lighter gray. But I find that contrast makes such a huge, huge, huge difference in stuff like this. So don't be afraid to add contrast. I am going to soften a lot of it with other colors and some softer grays, that kind of stuff, and add some of those. If you are part of my mailing list, if you've signed up for my blog mailing list, I do have a series of emails that go out once you sign up for the blog subscription, and that gives you a lot of design tips, and one of them is all about contrast. And so if you'd like to go to my blog, there will be a link at the end of this as well as in the description down below, so you can go to the blog and sign up for that and get some fun design tips. So these are just a couple different grays, softening out some of those shadows. And here is the finished card. I just put it on a couple layers of paper. I added a sentiment from another Ellen Hudson set. There will be links in the description as well as on the blog to all of those details. And I just did a little doodling around the edge of that circle to create that sentiment. Here are 2 other videos if you would like to see those, and I welcome you to click in the upper right hand corner to see my blog and subscribe if you have not yet. Visit my Patreon page, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye bye, and have a really fantastic day. Bye bye.